So I'm QuHarrison, the author of the Metaverse Handbook. I'm here in Gdansk, and we are at Infoshare's 2022. I'm excited to talk about the Metaverse and showcase some of the innovators that I found fascinating, because it's been several months since the book has come out, and so much has still happened. And I think the best way to update and allow people to really get caught up to speed quickly is to talk about the innovators and the innovation that's happened since.
So maybe we should start with actually saying what Metaverse is, because as you mentioned before, we talked a little bit before this conversation, it's a buzzword. So I think a lot of people heard the word and might have idea what it is, but don't know actually what it is and how to use it.
Yeah, so the way I like to think about the Metaverse is it's the next evolution of the internet. So the internet went from something that was largely experienced on desktop computers, to then laptops, to then mobile phones, and now we have these new devices known as spatial computing devices or immersive reality headsets, right? You put it on and you either see like a virtual environment, or you can see something that is not there but is there digitally. Think Pokemon Go or any of the furniture apps where you can redecorate a whole room and you're just placing virtual furniture and you're getting a feel for that. There's a whole new category of tech that is about to be unlocked and unleashed, but the internet had to evolve in order for those experiences to come full throttle. So that's what we're doing today. As far as the metaverse and the definition of it, I think of the metaverse as the spatial version of the internet. So if the internet evolves, what happens is there's now a spatial understanding, and in that spatial understanding, you're able to look at different possibilities and outcomes. And it's a really crazy question when you sit down and just let your mind go and go and go and go, because we think about the spatial dexterity that we have in general, like me and you, there's a presence that's created in just doing this interview. If we were to do a FaceTime call or a Zoom call, this presence can't be replicated. But if we were to somehow digitize our spatial or surroundings and environments, we're going to be one step closer to that holographic reality we all talk about and dream of and see in the movies. So that was a long-winded definition, but just I give the color because I think the metaverse is two things: the evolution of the internet as we know it today, and the introduction of the spatial web as we want to see it. Think holograms, think being able to recreate environments and showcase designs in real time.
So that, I think, might sound a little bit scary to some people in a way.
Yes.
So how could you describe it to them so that there's a lot of good coming from that, and the unknown that actually might be scary is maybe not so unknown?
That's a good question. So whenever we have a new technology, there is some very scary components that exist within that technology. When I think about you can go as far as back as the radio. When people first had radios, you know, the parents of the teens said, "Oh my gosh, my child is obsessed with the radio. It's going to ruin their brain. They're not listening to people. They listen to this black box and turn it off." And so then we got from the radio to TV. They said TV's going to, distract you. It's not going to be good. It's like your brain on TV is rotten. Then we got to computers, and now like everyone is somewhat addicted to this. We spend more time on this than we do probably face-to-face talking. Again, as we evolve that, I think we actually do have some hope for humanity where it's not so scary, because we're going to a place where we are recentering around the human experience. What I mean by that is, in the metaverse, if I recreate presence, you don't have to worry about the actual interface. Like, gone are the touchscreens, gone are the keyboards, gone are all the things that separate us from being us. And then the connectivity that exists is one that I find super fascinating, because we go into a space where it doesn't matter about location or distance. There's going to be a version of this conference that takes place in the next 10 years in the metaverse, and they'll have probably 40 times more people than are in here today. Simply because the technology will allow for it. Is the experience ready for that today? Not necessarily. But will we get there? Probably so. And when we get there, you're going to be able to meet all the innovators at that bank or at the startup down the block over there, or even here, like this interview, you're going to be interviewing people that you probably never would have been able to find time with because you'll have a virtual production studio. And while we're doing this, instead of having static backgrounds, we'd be able to change this in real time, and it's for a tenth of the cost.
So can you give us some examples what is already happening in the metaverse?
Yeah, so some things that I find super fascinating that are in the metaverse, I'll just give you three because I could talk all day and night about this, right? Is the first mind-blowing thing that just makes me go like, you know, WTF, like is there's a creator, her name's CK Bubbles. I'll talk a bit more about her tomorrow, but I'll give you a little bit of the exclusive here. CK Bubbles is a nail tech, a nail designer. I'm sure you've been to a nail salon, and you know, they do incredible work. Like, they don't have that much of a surface, and they can put some crazy designs on your nails. Well, she realized that she wasn't gonna be able to do nails 24/7 and earn money while she's sleeping. And so she built up a prominent nail business. There's a lot of demand, but how do I scale that when it's just a service? What she decided to do was go into the metaverse, create virtual nails, start giving them to influencers of the metaverse. And like, the crazy thing is, if you go into Centraland, you find her account, you'll see that she's actually selling these virtual nails, like people are buying them, and she's getting traction in ways that you would have never thought. Like, she literally has a virtual nail salon, and it's happening today, right now. And the reason why I like that example is because it takes a service that we all are pretty much familiar with, and we all probably would have some type of notion. If I said nail salons in the metaverse, you'd probably be like, really? Like, what? This guy has to be kidding me. And then you go and you look at her numbers and you say, oh wow, she's actually selling. Is it made her a millionaire tomorrow? No, it's not on that trajectory. But the point is it's not about like making money instantly. It's about doing something and finding the traction and the product market fit. And when you can identify that, that trend can grow over time. And the best thing about it is she doesn't actually have to put her hard working time into designing every single metaverse nail. She can make one and it can scale to many or as few as she determines. So that's first example. Second example that I think will be really relevant here because we're doing it. And I talk about this example in the Metaverse Handbook. It's available anywhere books are sold, and it's also on Audible. I think the audiobook is a great one. But I talk about in the Metaverse Handbook this person named Joe Hunting. Now, Joe Hunting is a cinematographer, photographer, much like the people around us making this production happen. He has great familiarity with cameras. But he was like, you know, there's so much land in the metaverse. Why don't I just become a metaverse photographer and documentarian? And so he did just that. He went in VR chat, figured out how to use all the different cameras. And like, side note, there really isn't, there's one camera in the metaverse. It's called the screenshot or screen record, right? So he got really good at taking screenshots. You've taken a screenshot how many times this week?
Well, not many, actually.
Not many. What about this month?
Probably few.
Probably few. So it's a habit that we all know.
Yeah.
But whoever thought we could monetize our ability to take a screenshot of something? And this is no disrespect. Like, he actually does really good screenshots and screen recordings. It's a profession because you have to get the perspective right. Again, I talked about the spatial awareness. You can look up, you can look left, you can look right, you can look down, you can look into the horizon. And he translates that metaverse experience into something that was good enough to go to Sundance, a major film festival, and then eventually you can actually watch that same presentation that he created on HBO Max as a documentary. Yes, it's called We Met in Virtual Reality. And that happens right now today. These are examples that I'm giving you that, you know, these are creators in the metaverse, but to me, it's just like it's super astounding. Now, the last example, and I talk about this example on this this project called Open Your Eyes. It's an EP, and I made it just to make it easier for people to kind of listen and get indoctrinated with all these metaverse terms. And so it's called Open Your Eyes. But there's a person on there that I talk about on this the track called Take Flight. and her name is Serena Ellis. Now, Serena Ellis is a meta diva, as she describes it. What do you think that means?
I have no idea, actually.
So we know the term meta, we know the term diva. So it's a cute way of saying metaverse influencer. But it's a cute way. It's like she's a meta diva, and she's got, you know, her squad of meta divas that also surround her, and they go and do incredible things. But the reason why I like Serena Ellis is she is taking things that you would statistically say only could happen in the real world and bringing them into the physical world in ways that, I mean, no. She's taking things that you could say that can only happen in the real world and bringing them into the virtual world in ways that you would be like, what? How? And to give you a couple examples, because she's not one-dimensional, she's super multifaceted. One of the examples that I think I found really like eye-opening was she's putting on events in the metaverse. Like she has DJ shows, she's a part of fashion shows, she creates spaces like in platforms for people to go and, you know, share their experiences and insights. And she's doing this not in one world, like a lot of creators, they stick to one metaverse or one metaverse experience. She's actually doing this across the multi-metaverse. I'm making these terms up, right? But like she's in multi-metaverses simultaneously. I haven't seen simultaneously. Like she'll hit 6 metaverses in one day. I haven't seen that. So my mind's blowing right now just as I'm talking about it, because I'm like, what? Like, she's in multi-metaverses, one person, she's figuring it out. She actually quit her job, like full-time real estate broker, decided to stop doing that and go all in the metaverse, and she's making it happen. And so those are my 3. The first person I mentioned was CK Bubbles, nail tech in the metaverse. The second person is Joe Hunting, a VR filmmaker. And the third person is Serena Ellis, a meta diva who is really redefining what it means to be a metaverse influencer. So with that, like, that's just a taste. The presentation tomorrow at 1 p.m. is gonna be way more spectacular. I plan to make it one heck of an experience to be at that presentation if you're in Gdańsk, because I hope I said it right. Like, I need help. This is practice. That was good? That was good? All right, thank you. I need to practice, because like I don't want to embarrass myself on stage, so we're gonna get it right. And I'm excited because it's the conferences like these that give an opportunity to the really emerging technologies to really say, hey, we're more than a buzzword and we can go beyond that. I think the fact that there's 3 presentations on the metaverse here today shows that Infoshare really cares about this new technology, and they're showing like what that could look like. And they're bringing the right experts and people together to really put in the different pieces, because again, when you're creating digital twins of the real world, it's not just one perspective that is going to make that thing really come to life. You're gonna have to diversify your thought and really create spaces and environments for everyone.
So you mentioned few people that are present in Metaverse.
Yes.
So could you maybe give us some examples of how companies actually may use the space?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You know, there's 2 types of companies that I think we all have agreed on. And there's more, but like, just for the sake of this interview, let's just imagine a world where there's B2B companies, so business to business, and B2C companies, business to consumer. And if you're on the business to consumer side, you've probably had this big realization in the last 2.5 years where you had this aha moment where you're like, our e-commerce strategy matters a lot. And we saw that because when the world shut down, you didn't have physical retailers, right? And so if I were a B2C company thinking about the metaverse, one thing that I would really lean into is figuring out either A, how do I use the metaverse as an extension of my e-commerce operations? Or how do I use the metaverse as a vessel to acquire a new audience, an audience that I'm not reaching, right? Some of the things that I've seen just happen recently with companies is one company said, hey, I'm not gonna build anything in the metaverse because we don't know just yet, it's still very early, but what we will do is if we see innovative ideas, we will sponsor them. We will let creators go ahead and make virtual booths, and we'll put our logo up and we'll create awareness so people in the metaverse can see our brand and understanding, and it's associated with cool things. And the cost for that, I mean, if you're buying Facebook ads or digital ads, you're probably spending more money there than you could to buy, at least a few properties in the metaverse. It's hard, right? Like, where do you go to put a metaverse ad up? It's not exactly that clear. So that's an example those are two examples on the B2C side. Now, if you're a B2B company and you're thinking about this domain known as the metaverse, you've probably seen or heard the headlines of companies going in and putting their headquarters up, or companies even creating their own metaverse. I think those are very ambitious pursuits right now. The reason why I say that is the ambitious nature of going and creating your own metaverse. It's going to require a ton of capital, and it's just not something that I think a lot of people are ready for at this moment. Let other people do that are well funded and honestly save your money. The second thing that I think is really interesting on that notion is when you think about B2B companies and where they might show up in the real world, they're usually powering the infrastructure. They're usually supplying the goods or the commodities that will go into create experiences elsewhere. In the metaverse, if you want to do that today, some things that I would think of and that I've seen here at this conference is a company like Spatial Go. They've created a CRM for the metaverse. So think of Salesforce and HubSpot, how we have that in real life. It's what is your metaverse CRM? Because you're not going to take this off and then go and type and then put this back on. You're not going to take this off, say hey, let me get your business card, go store that, and then bring it back. You're going to go in and you're going to just be a person in the metaverse, but you got to be able to capture data. You got to be able to share that. You got to be able to bring that back and sync that in your own corporate systems. So on the infrastructure side, that's a really cool utility where you think the HubSpots, the Salesforce of the metaverse will look different than the HubSpots and Salesforce of today. On the flip side, I've seen a lot of metaverse applications on the B2B side used for HR purposes. So situational awareness, how should people be treated? That's a really popular use case. Also seen it for educational purposes, meaning if there's a procedure or a transaction and it needs to be done a certain way and there's a routine, you can actually have a virtual human teach you that, and not just you, but every single person in your company and organization the same exact way. And that continuity of messaging matters a lot when it comes to just making sure everyone has the same baseline understanding. So those are some use cases. Again, we could talk about this all day. These are just some things that I think are pretty fascinating and are relevant to companies of all sizes.
You mentioned that it might not be the best time for certain companies to get involved into Metaverse.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what kind of companies are those, and for which companies it actually can be useful to get involved now?
So if you're a company and you need to make money right now, stay away from the Metaverse. I'm serious, because if you go in and your intention is not to learn, it's to monetize, you're gonna fail. And if you're gonna and I don't wish failure upon any company. I want all companies to succeed, but it's just gonna be really tough for you to go into this space that you've never had any experience in already, go into it because you heard the buzzword, invest a lot of time, energy, and money into it, and then you're expecting an ROI that is worthwhile. But if you don't know how to monetize the metaverse as it stands today, you're probably not going to figure it out tomorrow. And in that case, you just wasted all this time, money, and energy and resources on something that, is going to take several years to really come to life.
Okay, so for who it is a good time to get involved in Metaverse?
I think creators. So if you're a college student in your dorm room thinking about the next 4 to 5 years and how you're going to enter the industry, going deep on the metaverse right now is one heck of a benefit to your resume, right? When it's time for you to graduate and you have to ask yourself, where am I going to go work, or what skills do I have that other people don't? There's not going to be that many people in 4 years that have went deep on all these metaverse technologies, fully understand the infrastructure, the tools that are used to create the environments. Because you think about it, it's the evolution of the internet, as I described it earlier. The internet, we got web designers. We've got graphic designers that know how to make user experiences in UI. You have copywriters. All of those people have skill sets that contribute just so much value and impact to our internet lives as we know it. those same professions are going to evolve and go elsewhere, but they're not going to go elsewhere probably in the physical world. They're going to be a greater need in the metaverse. And those that understand that stuff and are getting familiar with it now, you're young, or if you're mid-career, let's say you're in your career currently, you're thinking about doing the next thing because you're at that phase where you want to elevate and accelerate, guess what? The metaverse is a great time to say, hey, what are these chief metaverse officers looking for? How can I contribute? And every company is literally adding this title known as CMO. And I don't mean Chief Marketing Officer. Which title do you think that stands for?
Chief Metaverse Officer, probably?
Yes, and that's happening today.
So we talked a little bit about what is happening today, but what do you think will happen in the future, and how can we prepare for that?
So chapter 1 of the Metaverse Handbook, it actually starts off with my vision for 2032. I'll give you a sample of that, but I really recommend you check out the Metaverse Handbook. It's available anywhere books are sold. And I mean, I'm here in Gdańsk because of the Metaverse Handbook, so I hope that speaks some volumes to the quality of the book. Now, to answer your question about the future, I think we're going to digitize experiences that we know today as very annoying. So the process of, did you fly here or did you?
I actually live nearby,
oh,
so
you live
I
nearby.
came by car.
Okay. But you know when you go somewhere, you're at the airport, there's a delay, it's several hours long, you're stuck with like two options. You can stand in this very long line, right? Or you can deal with their online portal, which is like a chat bot, or their telephone thing, which takes like ages to like ever make any progress on. So options aren't good. Chatbots are at this point where there is no human factor or presence to it. Like I type messages on a computer, I get a message back from a machine, it's very proper, there's no presence. I think we're gonna see in the next 10 years that whole infrastructure get shifted, because there is a lot of companies working on this whole concept and notion of digital humans and avatars. What happens is today, I give you an avatar, you on the metaverse, you run around as your avatar, but tomorrow, the bots that we have in our Slack communities, the bots that we see on these websites that you can talk to, they're gonna get much smarter in the next 10 years. And when that shift happens, and you're then able to connect it with this avatar, you'll have a new entity. We can call them non-player characters or NPCs, but they're actually gonna be able to add value to our everyday lives. So now when you're stuck at the airport, you'll have a device the same way we have phones today, where you can go in and say like, you know, Siri, connect me to X, Y, and Z chat experience. Or Siri, help me with this flight. Okay, I'm talking to the bot. The bot jumps in, and then now you're having this conversation with your assistants. And we're at this point where we all have a digital assistant, whether we like it or not. Like Google has a digital assistant, Amazon has their digital assistant, Microsoft has theirs, Apple has theirs. So they'll get better in the next decade. And one of the things that I think that they'll get better in providing value is being able to converse with other bot experiences and like being able to add value that way. And we've seen glimpses of it, but I think the metaverse will actually help that come to life in ways that are pretty akin to what we can do in games. Like if you've ever played a video game, you know how like you can be on a quest and it's like you get stuck, but there's like someone right there, they can help you and they can reset your point. That's gonna happen in the real life. And that's gonna be so cool.
So I think that's very interesting, because I think a lot of people might be afraid of the metaverse, that it might kind of eat the reality as we know it, the offline version. But what you're saying, it's not either or situation. It's going to become kind of a natural part of our lives and in a kind of immersive experience. Yeah,
that's the goal that we should all aspire to get to. The VR thing where we're plugged into headsets and looking up like that, that's not the dream. The dream is I can do my life and I'm not tied to this screen. I'm not tied to my phone. I'm not tied to my computer. All of that stuff is now immersive and already accessible via new interfaces that are defined by the metaverse.
So that's the technology we're still kind of working on and hoping for.
That's the spatial web as we will assume to know it. Yes.
So what are the competencies and skills that might be useful for that future to come?
That's great. I think, quick hitter on that one would be obviously there's going to be a great demand for designers and developers that are used to working with 3D file types and even motion graphics to some extent, because we went from buttons to like, you're going to want fluid animations in ways that are natural to our everyday life. Like when you walk, there's like a perspective that happens that you're so ingrained with that like it's going to be harder to replicate in these digital headsets. And like we have it to some extent, but it's not natural. Like even when I go into certain VR worlds, I can get a headache just because the movement isn't the same as the movement we're used to in our everyday lives. So understanding, you know, the design of spatial environments, interior design, graphic design, motion graphic design, CAD and like, you know, 3D modeling, all that stuff is going to be a huge need in the metaverse. The second area I think that we're really going to have to get some help with is AI. We're not going to be able to hard code all of the experiences we need. So to create some of the digital twins and the environments, AI is going to need to help play its part, and it's going to create a lot of content for us.
Okay, so you think that AI plays a huge part in the actual growth of the metaverse in that online space? In
the development, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the data sets. Like if you see some of the generative elements and applications that have existed and come to life this year alone, I mean, it's all powered by AI. Imagine what that AI could do in these virtual spaces where it's confined but unconfined at the same time.
You're here at the Tech and Startup Conference. What do you think are the possibilities for startup in that space?
If I were a startup and I had to start work in the metaverse, I probably would work at the intersection of connectivity. So right now there's a big need for bringing people to your space. You are a company, you build this amazing space, you host this amazing experience. There's no place I can go to right now that I can say, hey, I need some help getting some people into my space, help me out. So metaverse promoters per se. And promoters, like, we have like this bad view, or like, cause like there's the street promoter that like wants to bring you to some like shady or sketchy bar, or like there's the annoying promoter that's always sending you a message telling you about like some show they put all their money into. A good promoter is one that even puts on an event like this, where they talk to people, they bring people together, they create an audience, and that audience evolves into a community. We need startups to think about how do we do that today. We also need startups to think about how do we monetize. Like there's a magnitude of many different metaverses. The coolest thing about Google Ads was that they created a network of many different websites where I could place an ad like simultaneously in near real time. So that didn't matter if you went to this website or that web page, wherever you were on the web, I could probably show you the same ad. That same technology and software is going to be needed for the metaverse as we know it. And those are really big opportunities for startups that are thinking about 5, 6, 10 years from now.
So if I just heard our conversation and got hooked on the metaverse,
yeah,
what are the first steps that I could take to actually get involved and learn more?
Man, you already know what I'm going to tell you. Of course, I'm going to tell you to go check out the Metaverse Handbook. Beyond that, I think that it depends on what type of learner you are, right? There's resources to learn about the metaverse in several different ways. There's books, there's videos on YouTube, there's podcasts, there's content in a lot of different forms, surprisingly, right? Like if you go on the internet, like the Reddits, the comment sections on YouTube, there's so much information sharing and knowledge that just exists in these communities that I think I would actually spend some time paying attention to if I were like a young innovator thinking about the metaverse and excited by it. And then as far as getting an in-depth learning and experience, go learn a tool like Unity or Unreal Engine, because that will allow you to quickly spin up your own metaverse environments. And if you don't want to learn those, there's other creators like Spatial, and you can like figure out how to create. Because I feel like if you're not making a metaverse, or if you haven't like tried it, you don't know if you're going to really love this. Because you have to know the process and like what goes into it before you can actually change it. And so like, I say that to say, there's a lot of ways to learn. You have to understand how you learn best. Go to that channel, look at some of the content creators there, listen to the stuff, get familiar with the buzzwords, and then Once you're familiar with the buzzwords and terms, take that knowledge and go apply it into experiences that you build and learn through like actually doing. And then once you have a much greater perspective from that, go and say, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to get involved.
So maybe just to kind of sum up in a way.
I got you.
Okay.
Learn, figure out how you learn best. 2, go and actually apply the things that you've learned in real world experiences. 3, ask yourself, where do I want to apply the knowledge I've gained at a much larger level?
And what is kind of the, maybe, if you can choose, of course, one thing that gets you most excited about what's to come in the metaverse?
I think, you remember Clubhouse?
Yeah.
So Clubhouse, what was fascinating about it was near instantaneously, I could start a room, bring together great minds and friends from all over the world, and we could have a conversation about whatever. And that was just audio. That reminds me a lot of the radio. The metaverse is like TV on steroids, right? We're in this shift where we saw the connected radio, and that still has a lot of room to grow, but we're in like the connected television, and it's not like TikTok, it's not YouTube. It's the fact that like you can go in these places and spaces and you can literally create your own universe that is defined only by your imagination. And to me, I'm most excited by the creators and creativity that will be unlocked and imagined in that space. Because we saw what happened to the world when YouTube was introduced. Like, all of this probably wouldn't be possible if YouTube wasn't a channel for content to exist and live on, right? We wouldn't probably be doing this because it would be, too hard to get into. The metaverse is going to unlock creating basically video game-like experiences. And beyond video games, it's going to allow us to create scale in different environments in the real world simultaneously in ways that we just never imagined. Like, we thought Snapchat filters and Instagram filters are cool. Like, imagine being able to put a filter on your entire world as you know it. So it's like you could live in what's a city near Gdansk?
Near Gdańsk?
Yeah.
Sopot.
You could live in Sopot and never have to leave. And every day there's a new interaction that exists in your city that isn't bound by time. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, and that's happening today. Like, you can get on your phone, you can start building things, and you can place AR objects in the real world today. Like, AR is going to change our lives way in crazier ways than we can ever imagine, and that's just AR. AR is one component of XR. XR is a component of the metaverse. So these stepping stones, it's super early, but for the people and innovators that lock in now and just become interested and fascinated by it, it's unimaginable what's gonna come.
Yeah, it's kind of seemed like the possibilities are endless.
Correct.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Oh.